Time to use my sword. Sui Ping noticed the wound on the beast's chest. From the corner of his eye, he noticed that Li Yuanfeng was fine and unharmed. Sui Ping had no more concerns. He decided that he had to eliminate the threat and get out of that place as soon as possible. It couldn't have been a good thing when the winged beast went straight at them. Phew! Sui Ping found his sword in his storage space. He poured some energy that belonged to the Ashura King into the sword. The dark sword woke up, emitting a blinding but dark glow. Sin Cutter. That was a skill beyond the legendary rank. Sui Ping unleashed his astral powers along with divine energy. Space froze instantly, affecting several hundred meters around him. The void turned into countless blades and Sui Ping was the commander of them all. Kill that beast! A virtual figure appeared behind Sui Ping. The figure also wielded a sword, mimicking Sui Ping's movements. No words could describe what happened. At the moment of the attack, there was some turbulence in the air. It was like an invisible creature ripping through the air, leaving behind many dark cracks that contained a destructive force. I can't. Li Yuanfeng had just stabilized himself when he saw that appalling view. Horror! Even as an onlooker in the distance, Li Yuanfeng was able to feel that profound sense of death born from that black sword. If he were the target, he was certain that his death would be inevitable. Is Sui Ping only at the titled rank? Li Yuanfeng was baffled. In the meantime, the winged beast finally broke free from the residual influence of the attack suffered in the spiritual realm. Then it saw that black sword. Extreme fear had inspired extreme fury. The beast roared, eyes reddened as it waved its 4 weapons. Each of the 4 weapons had their unique strengths. The axe could cut through the air, the iron chains could split and multiply countless times, the sword was the sharpest and the huge rod was the one the beast had used, aiming at smashing Sui Ping's head. The beast fought back with extreme energy in that desperate moment. The strike was so powerful that a void state creature would have to run away, and would most certainly die if it decided to take the fall. Splash! The many iron chains reached toward the sword, but the sword light had severed the iron chains before they could reach their target. The axe created a deep crack in the air and the twisting force was trying to swallow the sword light, but the latter halved that deep crack. The second layer of the void? I don't believe it, the 4-winged beast shouted and stared at the young man as if he were the monster. Bang! The rod was stopped by an invisible force. The beast's sword bumped into the light emitted by Sui Ping's sword. Everyone was able to hear a loud noise before everything came to a stop. It seemed as if many years had passed. Then, they heard something that could make them go deaf, something akin to the sky falling down. The beast's sword broke. The beast's cry was cut off. The sword light gradually disappeared. The winged beast was forced back by hundreds of meters, it leaned against a wall, and the cut on the beast's body was appalling to the eyes. The cut started from the beast's chest, going all the way to its tail. Blood was gushing out from the cut. The beast was terrified. Just then, death was upon its door. But, even though the beast was bleeding, the pieces of flesh near the cut were moving, trying to close the cut. Li Yuanfeng was shocked to see how tenacious the beast's life was. Go to hell! Li Yuanfeng shouted and ran to the beast. But Sui Ping stopped him. It's okay. The beast is dead. Li Yuanfeng stared at Sui Ping who was putting away his sword. He then heard a shrill cry after a blasting sound. He looked over and saw dark flames jumping out from the beast's wound. The hellish fire burned the flesh and blood, gradually spreading across the beast's body, devouring it in its entirety. You'll never get out, the 4-winged beast cried out in the flames. Li Yuanfeng gazed at the struggling beast in the flame. The beast was as good as dead right then. His lips twisted as he put on a forced smile. Brother Su, you're not making me look good, you know. Li Yuanfeng went back and approached Sui Ping. Let's get out of here, Sui Ping said. The beast's shout just then worried him even more. Li Yuanfeng stopped bantering. He ran away with Sui Ping with a weary face. You will not get out. As the two were trying to get out, the beast's shout grew even more gruesome. The beast suddenly split up into pieces and a black swirl appeared right in the middle of the beast. The swirl merely had a 10-meter diameter. 2 seconds later, a pair of sharp claws reached out and tore the swirl open. "You've killed my vanguard. Are you the leaders of the tiny, puny human creatures?" A cold voice came out from the swirl as a huge head stuck out. The beast's body was covered in scales and spikes. It was as big as a small hill, large enough to fill up the entire pathway. Boom! The ground was trembling. Su Ping and Li Yuanfeng turned pale from fright. Fate state. Li Yuanfeng could not help but shout out in alarm. The years of experience gained told him that it was a fate state beast king. Su Ping didn't feel good about that, either. Apart from the beasts he had fought with in the cultivation sites, the only fate state beast king he had encountered on the blue planet was the otherworld heavenly king. Still, he was able to tell that the otherworld heavenly king was nothing compared to that one. "Run!" Su Ping shouted. Li Yuanfeng ran away with full strength, not looking back. They tried teleporting from one spot to another. Roar! A beast king came out to stop them. But Su Ping had run right through the beast king as soon as it appeared, tearing apart its vital organs. Its death was imminent. He killed a beast king with a single move. Both Su Ping and Li Yuanfeng had the strength to kill ocean state beast kings. They chose to hide from them as they traveled toward the corridor, because they didn't want to create too much of a disturbance. They would finish the fight soon when they had nowhere to hide, trying to minimize the impact. But then, they no longer needed to hide. The winged beast and that fate state beast king were purposefully targeting them. Their tracks had been exposed. Boom! The four-winged beast was burned into ashes. The black swirl grew from its remains as that huge beast gradually crawled out. Finally, the beast appeared in its entirety in the corridor. The swirl was gone, and so was the winged beast. The fate state beast king that the winged beast had summoned with its remaining life force suddenly began to tremble. The beast king shrank in size, gradually turning into a creature that was merely several meters tall, which resembled a human. But it was more as if a human would have merged with a pet. The thing had no eyebrows but had 4 crimson eyes on its forehead, and its cheeks were more like gills. The creature had quite the wicked and vicious feeling. Su Ping and Li Yuanfeng were still trying their best to get away. More and more beast kings came out from the forks in the road as they pressed forward. Those beast kings were acting under certain orders, which were to stop the 2 humans. Even some beast kings that were sleeping had come out for that mission. "Get out of my way!" Li Yuanfeng felt anxious. When compared to those beast kings, the one at the fate state was the real terror. Since he was at the void state, he could easily defeat the ocean state beast kings. Following that logic, that fate state beast king could easily defeat and even crush him. Li Yuanfeng unleashed an even greater strength. A dark mark appeared in the air. It was a sign space being torn open. Li Yuanfeng and Su Ping made their way forward, dodging the beast king's strikes. Some of the beast kings were using spiritual strikes and some used elements to attack them. They also noticed that some beast kings were able to use special force fields. Li Yuanfeng was experienced in fights, he knew many skills and possessed a lot of treasured artifacts. Those spiritual strikes were ineffective to him and his agility ensured he could avoid many strikes in time. Su Ping was also experienced. Even though he had not stayed in the deep caves for 800 years, he had fought intensely in the cultivation sites. He had tasted death many times over, possibly gaining more experience than Li Yuanfeng. After all, Li Yuanfeng had not spent every minute battling during those years. There was also the fact that some battles had been less dangerous. Bang! Su Ping ran right through a beast king. There were bolts of lightning glistening by the edge of the wound. Su Ping had been using the elementary rules of thunder. He felt that he might be able to attain the force of thunder with the force of space if he could deepen his understanding of the rules of thunder. Imagine that! Adding thunder to the nothingness of the void, it would generate a blasting effect. Boom! A Beast King was overturned by Li Yuanfeng. Suiping and Li Yuanfeng were able to free themselves from the strikes at the same time. Suddenly, they felt a tremor, which made their hearts skip a beat. It appeared that it had originated from the void. The tremor sounded like something's heartbeat. The next second, a twisted swirl appeared in front of them. Following that, a young man with 4 crimson eyes on his forehead stepped out. That beast! Li Yuanfeng recognized the beast at once. He thought of something. You're the thousand-eyed demon beast. Beast? I think that you, little humans, use the term beast for the lesser beings. You know, it is a damning thing to use that term on me. The crimson-eyed young man grinned at Li Yuanfeng. Space folding. Suiping looked worried. He had recognized the young man's skill the moment he appeared. It was related to space, which was an ability that all the Fate State creatures mastered. Space folding, as the name entailed, gave them the ability to fold space. Creatures that used this ability were able to get anywhere they wanted. It was even more powerful than teleportation. You could go directly from the North Pole to the South Pole of the blue planet with space folding. Teleportation would require 10,000 uses to cover a similar distance. Space folding could exert great influence in battle as well. Teleportation would enable anyone to get to any random spot and surprise the target. With space folding, you'd be able to take any given piece of space and fold it. Those at the void state would be unable to break free from that piece of space. They would forever be trapped in that corner, much like a bug in a bottle. No amount of struggle would help. Void state creatures were able to appear without a trace with teleportation, which could enable them to easily kill ocean state creatures easily. But all of that meant nothing when compared to what the Fate State creatures could do. Brother Su. Li Yuanfeng stood with his back to Suiping. Suiping looked at him. He was in a daze. That look. Suddenly, Suiping felt he was once again in the Longjiang base city when the Inferno Dragon stood in front of him. Li Yuanfeng was just as determined as the Inferno Dragon back then. You have a more promising future than I do. Li Yuanfeng's voice was low but he was serious. I'll stop him, and you will live on for my sake. You must get out of here alive. I am not leaving. Suiping refused. The Inferno Dragon had risked its life to protect him. He would not stand in the back. Don't be impulsive. Li Yuanfeng didn't expect for Suiping to get so rash at that time. Suiping certainly sounded full of courage and righteousness, but he wasn't looking at the big picture. Li Yuanfeng preferred to be the one dying than allow Suiping to fight to the death. It was all because he had seen hope and a bright future in Suiping. He was the hope for all humankind. Suiping was at the intermediate position of the titled rank, but he already had strength on par to the void state. If even he was unable to save the deep caves and the blue planet when he developed further, then who could? He determined that Suiping could not die, not there, not that day. He didn't know what he could do but he would not allow that. If you don't go, I will only die with an everlasting regret. Li Yuanfeng snarled. It was against his wishes to see Suiping give in to his emotions. He wanted for Suiping to treat him as a disposable stepping stone. He wanted Suiping to get out. The faster, the better. He couldn't give in to his emotions. Suiping remained silent. He stepped in front of Li Yuanfeng and said, "You won't die with everlasting regret because you will not die. I asked you to come to show me the way, not to sacrifice your life." Li Yuanfeng could no longer see the crimson-eyed young man because Suiping was standing in front of him. Li Yuanfeng bellowed in a fit of rage, "Get out of here! I am ordering you as a legendary battle pet warrior. Go away! I haven't beaten something at the Fate State yet but I'm almost sure that I can get out alive. Go ahead and get inside." Suiping opened the scroll with his back toward Li Yuanfeng. Li Yuanfeng could simply not believe what Suiping was doing. "Are you kidding me? You are just at the titled rank and this one here is at the Fate State. Do you even know what it means? He can kill the both of us with a mere thought. If that's the case, you standing here won't make a difference. Why don't you listen to me and see what happens? Su Ping stated calmly. Li Yuanfeng laughed out of anger. Of course, he knew he couldn't stop anything. But he had treasured artifacts, skills. He could burn his life and he could use taboo skills to buy some time for Su Ping to get away. What did Su Ping have? When Li Yuanfeng was about to talk some more sense into him, Su Ping had answered with his actions. Dark mist rose from him. The Ashura King's energy and the divine energy flowing in his veins were surging out. Something unspeakable was instantly spreading all over Su Ping. He was becoming even more powerful than those at the void state. Amid the dark mist were some rays of golden light. Li Yuanfeng's jaw dropped. Su Ping carried that overbearing momentum and Li Yuanfeng felt Su Ping was even more powerful than he was. Is Su Ping really, at the titled rank? Li Yuanfeng's eyes reddened. Su Ping was a rare talent, he would feel sorrier about Su Ping's death than his own. Li Yuanfeng regretted not stopping Su Ping in the first place. He should have tried his best to stop him from entering the corridor. Get inside! Su Ping shouted. Li Yuanfeng bit his teeth. He eventually said nothing as he went into the scroll. He wanted to stay and fight alongside him. However, Su Ping was determined. He had to choose to believe in him. The young man with crimson eyes pointed out, you have Ashura energy and some strange divine energy. I don't think you are one of the regular human creatures. Su Ping darted him a glance and then teleported away at once. Chatting? No kidding. That Beast King could chat with him, but he would be courting death if he continued to stay there. Those were the deep caves. More and more Beast Kings would arrive with every passing minute. He would be unable to escape if he was surrounded by Beast Kings. He wasn't even sure if that Beast King was the biggest boss of the deep caves, it could very likely be another minion. It would be even more dangerous if the second case were true. The crimson-eyed young man licked his lips as Su Ping dashed away. The Ashura energy is so pure. Reaching that rank will no longer be a dream if I can get that, said the young man, eager for a taste. Buzzing. He raised his hand. The space in front of him became twisted. Thousands of meters away, the walls began to grow in front of Su Ping. It was more as if he were falling. He was being sucked into a folded space, like a bottled bug. Break! Su Ping shouted. He cut through the folded space with his sword. Boom! He unleashed both Ashura force and divine energy with that move. The dark sword light cut through the folded space. Whoosh! Su Ping broke free from the constraint. He teleported away without looking back. What? That confident smile on that crimson-eyed young man. He could not believe that a guy at the titled rank had been able to break free from his space folding. Not even the other Fate State beasts would have had such an easy time getting away. That sword is not a common one. The young man noticed the root cause at once. The sword was strange and its light was worrisome for him. That was a move that could threaten the lives of those at the Fate State. No wonder he dares to let the other Void State human hide. The young man narrowed his eyes. Killing intent was visible in all of his 4 eyes. He decided to quit playing games, stepping into the void and vanishing right then. If space folding wasn't enough to keep Su Ping inside, he would go and kill Su Ping himself. Boom! Su Ping reappeared on a certain spot. He had barely emerged when he lifted his sword. Bang! A sharp claw reached out from a place in front of him, aimed at smashing his head. But he successfully deflected the blow with his sword. The crimson-eyed young man came out, he frowned at his failure. Such acute perception. You're a curious one among your kind. The young man squinted his eyes, no longer hiding his killing intent. Su Ping's skills had frightened him. That person was merely at the titled rank. What would he become when he reached the legendary rank? A hidden hazard had to be dealt with. Su Ping had been able to get away, all thanks to the sword. He teleported again without saying anything. Many sharp blades assaulted him when he emerged. He cut them off with his sword. Sui Ping's agile reactions frustrated the vicious young man. Freeze! He lifted his hand and space began to tremble. Sui Ping felt as if someone had smashed his chest with a hammer. That blow would have killed him if it weren't for his exceptionally strong body. That was the true strength of a creature at the Fate state. Such a creature could kill another creature at the Void state with a single blow. Go away! Sui Ping bellowed. Dark flames were burning around the sword. He wielded the sword with all of his might. The space was so thick that teleportation was not possible, the area gave out a harsh noise and the sword left a dark crack in space. Turbulent air filled that crack. Sui Ping stepped into it without hesitation. The crimson-eyed young man pulled the crack to the sides. The crack widened further and something pushed Sui Ping outside. The young man said, "World of nothingness." Sui Ping turned out to be a trickier problem than he had imagined. The spatial skills alone weren't enough to stop Sui Ping, which was a surprise. He was compelled to use his other skills. The world of nothingness was an inherent skill that he could use since he was born. It was a spiritual strike that could affect other Fate state beasts. That was not a skill that could enable him to kill Fate state creatures. The crimson-eyed youth was not good at close-quarter combat. He was more skilled with long-range spiritual strikes. Silence! The world had no sound. Blood-red beams emerged from the young man's eyes and lit up the world. The red light enveloped everything, including Sui Ping. The young man only had the chance to use the skill when others looked right into his eyes. But then, he no longer needed to wait. Sui Ping felt the world turn red in front of his eyes. The next second, he found himself falling into something soft, and that substance soon gave him a cold and slimy feeling. He looked around. He was in an ocean of blood. The young man with crimson eyes appeared in the sky. He looked down at Sui Ping, who was soaking in the ocean of blood, and gave his verdict, "Human creature, prepare to experience fear." He was annoyed, given that Sui Ping had been able to escape several times. It was like the times you were trying to kill a mosquito, and failed after several tries. You might have lost that urge after some time. The tranquil ocean of blood began to tumble. Sui Ping saw many evil creatures rising from the ocean of blood. Their appearances were ugly and vicious, some of them had organs growing outside of their bodies, which was quite gruesome. The smell of blood was so real that Sui Ping thought that he would die in reality if he died in that ocean of blood. The young man with crimson eyes said to Sui Ping, "You don't have to wonder. Your brain will die here and you will never go back to your normal life." Sui Ping was surprised. He was just thinking about that. "I can sense every thought you have in my world of nothingness. So, you have no chance to escape at all. This is something like a field of laws." "Do you know what a field of laws is?" the vicious young man asked with contempt. The field of laws was something that only those at the star rank would be able to construct. That was a rank he aspired to reach. Of course, it wasn't fun talking about his great expectations with a human creature. Something like a star rank skill. Sui Ping was frightened. That thousand-eyed demon beast had to be a very powerful beast at the Fate state, much more so than the other world heavenly king. "You know the star rank?" The young man was surprised to have learned that thought from Sui Ping. Sui Ping said nothing and ignored the evil creatures that were crawling closer to him. Wisps of Ashura energy burst out of him, cutting the evil creatures into pieces. "Is this the fear you talked about?" Sui Ping gradually lifted himself from the ocean of blood and he calmly gazed at the young man with crimson eyes. Sui Ping was unwilling to give up. The crimson-eyed young man snorted. "This is just the warm-up." Sui Ping heard some sad and shrill cries when the sound of his voice faded away. Twisted beasts crawled out from the ocean of blood, some of them were formed entirely of bodily organs and it was truly disgusting. Sui Ping looked at the beasts that were approaching him, but he didn't seem to be disturbed. "Since you can see my thoughts, then see the true hell," So Ping said. Hardly had his voice faded away when an area with darkness and shadows appeared behind him. His force field was opened, full of killing and slaughter. This time, the force field seemed to be able to extend all the way to infinity. He was in a spiritual realm, the strength of the force field was related to the strength of his spirit. An ancient and ugly world appeared in the force field. The mountain had been formed with corpses and the water was blood. The demons and fiends roamed around in that world. Roar! A strange, yet indescribably free cry was heard. A gigantic figure emerged and came down from the sky. The figure was larger than anyone could imagine, its descent was disturbing the clouds. It was impossible to express the horror contained inside that figure. Anyone could be driven to madness because of fear. However, something grabbed that gigantic figure and pushed back into the sky. The scream of pain echoed in the sky and on the ground. At the same time, a noise was heard, as if someone were chewing on bones. Blood rained down from the sky. The clouds were tainted red and the ocean of blood was disturbed by drops of blood. There were some remains mixed in the blood rain. The pupils of the young man were contracted upon witnessing that sight. The terror in his face was extreme. That world was enough to make one go crazy. That is a place I've seen. It does exist, So Ping stated the fact calmly. That was a place he had certainly visited. It was just a corner of the chaotic realm of the undead. That was the most distinct world of undead creatures, such views were the norm in that place. It was a world that was even more terrifying than hell, where all the undead creatures across history had gathered. The most vicious and disgusting creatures could be seen everywhere. And So Ping had lived there for an entire month. He had seen enough terrifying things, all thanks to the system and unlimited revival chances. He didn't lose his sanity because he had refined his will and spirit. I don't believe it, the young man shouted, but he could no longer hide the fear in his eyes. Right then from the clouds behind So Ping that thing that was eating the bones suddenly stopped. A roar that was the most violent of all was heard. The roar lingered in the sky. The ocean of blood was tumbling violently. The young man was trembling and his eyes were so wide that his eyeballs could fall out. That roar was more threatening than any dragon's roar. He felt like an ant standing in front of a behemoth, he could be eaten or stepped on to death at any minute. He had never seen anything like that. Even the ruler he had met at the deepest parts of the deep caves would be considered vulnerable compared to that creature. But the world of nothingness was telling him that it was a world that the human creature had seen with his own eyes. That was not something the human had imagined. Had the world outside the deep caves become that terrifying? The crimson-eyed young man was terrified and confused. He was becoming mentally disturbed. Many ugly and large figures appeared in So Ping's force field, each and every one of them was intimidating. They had to be above the legendary rank, even above the star rank. It was a rank that the young man was unable to fathom. But there was more than one of them. They came, one after the other. Ah! The young man cried toward the sky. He cradled his head and cried non-stop. That blood world was cracking open. The ocean of blood was being sucked into a deep swirl under So Ping's feet. The evil creatures would disappear right after they came into being in the ocean of blood. Bang! The entire world finally collapsed. The ocean of blood vanished. The sky was gone. So Ping was seeing the dark road in the corridor again. The force field was still working behind So Ping, but it wasn't as vast as it was when So Ping was trapped in the world of nothingness. There would be the occasional appearance of some horrifying creatures in the limited force field, seemingly real creatures that were just trapped in another dimension. Phew! Phew! The young man with crimson eyes was panting. Tears of blood were coursing down from his 4 eyes. He stared at So Ping, the fear in his eyes soon turned into anger and killing intent. He didn't want to admit it, but he had just been frightened to the point of tears. It was humiliating. He was at the fate state and he had gained his status in the deep caves with his viciousness and killing intent. Still, he had been scared by a human creature. How insulting! You! You should rot in hell! The young man with crimson eyes clenched his teeth. He must have been clenching his jaw too hard that his teeth became deformed. No matter how terrifying the projected world was, it wasn't real combat strength. One would have to rely on claws and teeth to fight. Roar! The young man resorted to action, exerting his full strength right away. He first confined the surrounding space and then teleported to where Suaping was, aiming to smash the latter's head with his sharp claws. In the meantime, Suaping had opened his eyes. He saw the young man about to reach him. Suaping lifted his hands and the strong impact upon contact smashed him backward. He was stopped by the wall hundreds of meters away. The entire pathway was trembling. Suaping felt a piercing pain in his arms. He looked down to check, the white bones on his hands were cracking, but the healing was already in process. The little skeleton had protected him. Otherwise, he would have been torn apart. Run! He ran away at once, without any hesitation. He had been able to break free from the Beast King's spiritual strike by using his force field. Even so, he was sure he didn't have the ability to fight that Fate State Beast King. That Beast King was much more terrifying than the otherworld Heavenly King. The only way out was to run. The young man shouted, "You cannot get away from me!" He swung his arms and space began to change. Suaping was running forward, but he was only traveling backward in reality. Suaping wanted to take his sword to cut the space, but the young man had appeared behind him and the former was scratching at the air with his sharp claws. The space twisted again. Suaping had to turn back to stop the claws from reaching him. Bang! The Beast King bashed Suaping again. Go to hell! The young man approached Suaping. Suaping was losing ground, his arms had become numb. The white bones on his arms had too many cracks after fending off more than a dozen strikes. It was appalling to the eyes. Suaping knew that the little skeleton could not hold on for much longer. He was worried indeed. A battle pet warrior at the titled rank such as him would not have enough strength to deal with a Fate State Beast King. Inside the scroll. Whoosh! Li Yuanfeng had gotten in. He stood at the place where the scroll closed and then saw what seemed to be a blue sky. Li Yuanfeng looked pale. He had placed all of his hope on Suaping at the moment. If Suaping died, he would also die. Sir! Solingyu rushed to where he was. She still had the silver scales on her body and she could fly. Yan Binjiao could not believe that. She had easily subdued the girl during the elite league in the Longjiang base city, the latter had only been able to fight because of that strange dragon. But here they were again, and the girl had somehow become able to fly. Did she reach the titled rank? Li Yuanfeng had also noticed that Solingyu was flying, but he wasn't in the mood to probe. He was just too worried. Solingyu noticed the worry in his face. She had to ask, where's my brother? Your brother is outside, Li Yuanfeng said. Solingyu didn't understand. And what about you? Li Yuanfeng decided that he should tell her since she was Suaping's sister. We got into some trouble. The thousand-eyed demon beast, a creature that guards the corridor for the other beasts, somehow noticed us and it is hunting us down at the moment. The thousand-eyed demon beast. Solingyu was able to guess the ominous significance hidden behind those simple words. My brother cannot do it alone. Sir, Solingyu was anxious. Li Yuanfeng explained, your brother is only at the titled rank, but he's much better than I am. I would only slow him down. Solingyu asked, so, my brother is out there alone with that thousand-eyed demon beast? Li Yuanfeng clenched his fists and nodded. Out of pure impulse, Solingyu wanted to say that she could go out to help. But before she could reach the word help, she had regained her senses. Could I help at all? Her eyes reddened. The deep caves were full of beast kings, but Suaping came in regardless, to find her at the risk of his life. On the other hand, she couldn't even offer the slightest help. She had to stay there. If Suaping died, they would also go down with him, but she didn't mind that. She was the reason why Suaping was taking such risks. She knew that Suaping was talented, more than anyone she knew. The brother she had was not the loser whom she used to think he was. He was a genius. She had met many students that were considered talented after entering the academy, including those with last names Fei, Nan, Ji, and Guo. But compared to her mean brother, those talented students were just so-so. Given time, Suaping would be able to reach a height that no one would be able to imagine, and she firmly believed it. And yet, just for her sake, Suaping, her brother, who had such a promising future, had entered that place and might even die in there. Am I really worthwhile? Am I? Solingya bit her lips. Blood oozed out. The taste of blood was bitter in her mouth. She wished that she could trade the rest of that life, the next life, and the next life after that for Suaping's safety. If God was merciful and asked her for a price in return, she would agree without hesitation. But reality was that it would never happen. Nothing she did would have any meaning. That was true desperation. Inside the complex corridor, beast kings were coming out from their lairs, heading toward one place. There was an order they could not disobey. At the same time, beast kings were eager for the taste of blood themselves. They were more than happy to kill the invaders. While the beast kings were on their way, they heard a sonorous bark all of a sudden. That was a bark filled with fury. Bang! A dog's head appeared. It was the dark dragon hound. It appeared out of nowhere and stood in front of Suaping, unleashing over 100 legendary rank skills the moment he showed up. The glare was enough to light up the world. Skills of the legendary rank were hard to get, not to mention mastering over 100 of them at the same time. This would be a striking scene to anyone and any beast king. Those were all defensive skills. The strikes from the young man stopped. He narrowed his eyes as he landed his gaze on the angry dog. To his surprise, he was scared by the killing intent in the dog's eyes. What was that? The young man moved back to add some distance. He had to observe the battle pet first. My God! Even Suaping was stunned by the many defensive skills that the dark dragon hound had been able to put into use in one go. For one thing, it was hard even for beast kings to master more than 100 defensive skills. For another, even if they could, it would be troublesome to use them all at once because of energy limitations. It was all beyond logic and reason for the dark dragon hound to have enough energy to sustain that action. The amount of energy stored was close to the one seen on void state creatures. But the dark dragon hound was merely at the 9th rank. Suaping thought of the many training rounds he exposed the dark dragon hound to in the cultivation sites. It had also gone through many heavens tests and had eaten many treasured herbs. On top of that, the pet had been blessed with the old Dragon King's legacy. It wasn't hard to understand that the dark dragon hound had more energy stored than the usual. Not even a beast king. The crimson-eyed young man had noticed the battle pet's strength and was surprised by what he found, since it was merely at the 9th rank. It wasn't even a beast king. Just as bad as the human creature. Both were merely at the 9th rank. The young man clenched his fists. You, puny insects from the surface. I cannot believe that things like you have evolved amongst your kind. I'm glad you're here, because if you hadn't shown up, he felt lucky. Sure, the human creature had stunned him. He would become a bigger problem if he were allowed to reach the legendary rank. But the good thing was that the little creature had gone there willingly. Die. The young man didn't say anything else. He had considered killing Suaping a fun thing at first. Then, he believed that killing Suaping was a great contribution. Killing a talent like that would weaken humankind. The sharp blades which had been formed with the void pierced through the dark dragon hound's defense, reaching its head. The dark dragon hound's skills were of the legendary rank but only at the ocean state. There was also the beast's intellect. The dark dragon hound didn't have a deep understanding of the workings of space, so it was incapable of stopping a single spatial strike. The defensive layers certainly looked glamorous, but a Fate State Beast King could cripple them all from within. The first round worked because the crimson-eyed young man didn't see that coming and ran right into the defensive layers. Sui Ping was startled by the young man's sudden move. He drew his sword and cut off the sharp blades that were about to land on the dark dragon hound's head. I think I'll have to do that to get out, Sui Ping thought. Since his enemy was a Fate State Beast King, he would be unable to run and his enemy could easily catch up with him. He would have to defeat his enemy if he wanted to get out alive. That was how it worked. Being the inferior party, there wouldn't even be a chance to run away. Whoosh! Sui Ping lifted his hand. Astral powers gathered in his palm. He looked at the dark dragon hound, his pet was his only hope at the moment. Let's undo the seal. Sui Ping said. He poured astral powers into the trembling dark dragon hound. The latter felt a strange sensation inside. A strand of unspeakable energy was filling the dark dragon hound's limbs. Its dark hair was gradually turning golden. The legacy passed by the old Dragon King was too much for the dark dragon hound back then, so the old beast was compelled to add some seals, later teaching Sui Ping how to undo them. Sui Ping wanted to raise the dark dragon hound's aptitude, so he kept the seals. He was also afraid that his pet's foundation would not be solid enough if the progress was too fast. And yet, right then and there, he had no choice but to undo the dark dragon hound's seal to get rid of the thousand-eyed demon beast. Roar! The dark dragon hound was growing in size, its eyes reddened and then it roared in a way that only dragons were able to. Dark clouds began to gather at the ceiling and there were bolts of lightning jumping around. That was the heavens test. Sui Ping was undoing the third seal. The dark dragon hound would become a beast king. There were 9 seals in total. The pet would reach the peak of the ocean state when the 4th one was removed. Undoing the 5th seal would take the dark dragon hound to the void state. Sui Ping was only able to sign contracts with ocean state beast kings. If he also undid the 5th seal, the contract would backfire and it would hurt both him and the pet. Let's do it. Sui Ping poured astral powers into the dark dragon hound again. The hound grew larger again. Its hair turned golden, from tip to root. It became a golden hound. But soon after, a wisp of dark mist rose from its hair, adding a layer of shadow to the golden color, then the beast didn't look as glaring. The dark mist gave the pet a more dignified look. The mist came from the original dark energy inside the dark dragon hound, since it was a demon pet. Even though it had received the old Dragon King's legacy, the original demon bloodline was still there. Roar! The dark dragon hound's roar echoed in a large area. It just so happened that a bolt of lightning born from the dark clouds was going to crash down on them. The heavens test was a powerful one. This was a grave matter, for battle pet warriors and beasts alike. They would have to find a place of absolute safety and make sure that they were in their best state before they initiated the heavens test. However, since the enemy was there, the heavens test couldn't be any more untimely. The dark dragon hound roared when that bolt of lightning was about to land. Boom! The bolt of lightning was dispersed by the roar. The dark clouds were tumbling, as if on the verge of disappearing. One roar had stopped the lightning bolt. The dark dragon hound wore a vicious look and its momentum was overbearing. It was reaching the peak of the ocean state and its combat strength was also growing. As the seals were undone, some of the hidden bloodline skills were being transferred to the dark dragon hound. The pet was learning the history of the old Dragon King and its many battle skills. A burst of dragon's breath came out from the dark dragon hound. Maybe it was because the seals had been freshly undone, there was a feeling that the dark dragon hound was even beyond the legendary rank. What the heck was that? The young man with crimson eyes watched in disbelief. A sudden increase in rank? Becoming a beast king directly? Such a thing could not happen so randomly. A beast would have to be fortunate enough and powerful enough to become a beast king, just like when a battle pet warrior was trying to reach the legendary rank. Also, the young man stared at the dark clouds. He was unable to see the end of them. He still remembered how the dark clouds had extended for merely 15,000 meters. The current cluster of clouds was definitely beyond that range. And he was unable to see the end of the dark clouds. Of course, the forks in the road had also made it impossible. That being said, the young man was sure that the dark clouds were bigger than when he was at the heavens test. He knew that the extent of the clouds was related to the candidate's aptitude. So, that Battle Pet was better than he was? The almost disappearing dark clouds began to gather again. Another bolt of lightning was going to come down. Roar! The dark dragonhound breathed out a ray of golden light that pierced through the very center of the lightning and crushed it directly. The crimson-eyed young man was at a loss for words. He had never seen anything like that. Go away! Suaping helped the dark dragonhound. That was not the time for taking the heavens test which could distract them, giving the Beast King a chance to sneak up on them. Suaping and the dark dragonhound had also gone through many of those tests. It wasn't necessary for them anymore. It no longer mattered to them. Beast Kings or legendary battle pet warriors would end up malnourished if they didn't go through the test. This would make them weaker than their peers. Bang! Suaping slashed at the dark clouds. A crack appeared in space and the turbulent air inside sucked the dark clouds in. The young man stared in undisguised shock. When someone unrelated to the test tried to meddle, the bolts of lightning would only grow in strength because the heavens would be enraged. However, Suaping had done the most amazing thing. He dispelled the heavens test by relying on nature's force. He had stopped the heavens test. He completely ignored the test. 2 seconds of days later, the young man came back to his senses. He understood that Suaping was making sure that he wouldn't have a chance to launch a surprise attack. However, without having taken the heavens test, that battle pet was crippled as far as the young man could tell. That battle pet had become a beast king all of a sudden and becoming even more terrifying than before, but it made the young man want the battle pet even more. If he could eat the battle pet and take its bloodline, he would be one more step closer to that rank. The young man with crimson eyes whispered, "Moon eyes." The 4 bloody eyes on his forehead suddenly opened to the extreme, and the invisible power was released. The dark dragonhound who had been roaring in anger suddenly shook its body, and its angry red eyes suddenly became dull-looking. Suaping knew that none of that was real, but he was unable to find a solution. Buzzing! Right then, a ray of golden light shone radiantly, accompanied by a Buddhist sound. Suaping felt that something in his mind shook, and then the pain vanished. It was as if he had only dreamed of that pain. The contorted world transitioned back to the real world. The moment everything went back to normal, Suaping saw that the young man had teleported to where the dark dragonhound was. His claw was enlarging and his fingers were twisted, there was a mouth growing out of the palm. He was planning on devouring his pet. Go away! Suaping shouted. He poured all of his Ashura and divine energy into this one cut. Space broke. The ray of sword light landed on the weird mouth growing out of that palm. The young man narrowed his crimson eyes. I don't believe it, he shouted in terror. Suaping's sudden move had taken him off guard. He had been unable to move his hand fast enough and the mouth ended up biting Suaping's word. Crack! The sword then left a deep cut on the lips. Space began to crack along the cut, and the crack itself was about to suck the lips in when the young man closed it in time. Whoosh! The young man retreated for hundreds of meters, gazing at Suaping sullenly. A golden goblet appeared over Suaping's chest. The golden goblet was spinning, emitting rays of golden light. Suaping felt a spread of warmth inside him. He noticed that the golden goblet was one of the artifacts the old Dragon King had given him. It was one of the useful ones. But he didn't know, before then, that it was an artifact that could repel spiritual strikes. Thank you so much, Dragon King, Suaping said inwardly. If it weren't for that golden goblet, things would have taken an awful turn for him. Wake up! Suaping slapped the dark dragonhound's back. The pet trembled but clarity returned to its eyes, realization soon arrived, enraging the pet even more. It had tried to protect Suaping, but the both of them had almost ended up getting killed. The dark dragon hound snarled and its claws were enlarging. Crack! The temperature was dropping and the air was freezing. The dark dragon hound was emitting ghastly streams of cold air. It was a skill called Abyssal Zero, a skill that belonged to the old Dragon King's species. Those heaven expansion dragons had once mastered all sorts of elements in nature, being able to manipulate them with agility. That was why the Dark Dragon Hound was able to learn more than 100 legendary rank defensive skills after it got the legacy from the old Dragon King. Suaping's hound was able to learn skills of different sorts before, but those skills were of the titled rank. The pet had only managed to learn them after its many brushes with death. But legendary rank skills were much more complicated. The Heaven Expansion Dragon's bloodline gave the hound the ability to absorb a great deal of different new skills within a limited time. The Heaven Expansion Dragon's bloodline had two distinct categories, fire and water. The old Dragon King had been born with a nature closer to water. What? The young man watched as the air froze. Its eyes were able to see at the molecular level. At the moment he was able to see how the water in the air was freezing up. The young man had also noticed effects on a deeper level. Even the air itself was being affected by the falling temperature and began to stop moving. Trying to free the space. The crimson-eyed young man pulled a long face. The battle pet turned out to be something beyond his imagination, while at the ocean state, with a shallow understanding of spatial mechanisms, the battle pet was still able to control space. That skill was truly terrifying. The star rank bloodline is amazing. The young man took a deep breath. Dark liquid oozed out from his pores and the thick liquid covered his skin, forming many pigment layers. The hand he had turned into a claw before returned to normal, but the cut on his palm was still bleeding. The young man licked the blood, the 4 eyes on his forehead were rolling about wildly. He seemed to have become excited. Bang! Bang! His skin was opening up on his face, neck, and body, revealing the many crimson eyes inside. The Beast King had instantly opened up dozens of eyes and its momentum was rising. Watch out! Suaping immediately cast some augmentation skills to the Dark Dragon Hound. In the meantime, he told the little skeleton to absorb energy for undead creatures which floated in the air, to then pass the harvested energy to him so that he could share it with the Dark Dragon Hound. It went without saying that the Dark Dragon Hound was the one with the strongest defense. The little skeleton was almost immortal, but it couldn't pass that trait to him, the master. On the other hand, the Dark Dragon Hound's defensive skills could benefit them all. Distract him. I will find us a way out. Suaping said to the Dark Dragon Hound in his consciousness. He looked around. He had not chosen a random route while he was trying to run for his life. He had been making his way to the exit. But the exit would not lead them to the field of ice, which was too far away. It would take him at least half a day to get there. He had been running to the exit closest to him. He had no idea what he would see on the other side. But he was closer to that exit. It would take him 5 minutes to get there. He would have to exert the utmost strength during those 5 minutes to keep on teleporting. Still, distracting the 1,000-eyed demon beast for 5 minutes was too much. The Dark Dragon Hound looked even fiercer after receiving Suaping's order. Apart from the Abyssal Zero, the hound began to use other defensive skills at the same time. Cluster of Wind God. Hug of the Ice Queen. Dress of the Flame Muse. Suaping was surrounded by many defensive layers. Those skills could cover a large area, but they were currently being concentrated on Suaping. There was a cyan shadow behind him. The flames were his clothes and his skin was covered in ice. There was dark armor covering him as well. That was the result of a demonic defensive skill. Over a dozen defensive layers made Suaping almost invincible. Not even 100 missiles would hurt him, not one bit. Roar! The Dark Dragon Hound bellowed. The suddenly spreading ice was blasted into pieces, landing on every corner of the pathway. Space froze and so did the walls. The crimson-eyed young man was unable to move. Run! Sui Ping shouted. That was a perfect chance. Whoosh! He teleported away. He heard a noise of something cracking right when the first teleporting round ended. In the meantime, a red shadow appeared in front of him. He lifted his hand, something bumped into his sword and the impact threw him to the ground. Sui Ping stood up. Even though the impact was strong, he was completely unhurt. However, 3 defensive layers had been broken. 3 layers cracked. I said it already, you cannot escape from me. The young man looked down at Sui Ping from the air, while covered in red flames. He gazed at Sui Ping and the dark dragon hound with derision. I might have feared you a little bit if your state was the same as mine. Truth be told, you would be a painful enough headache for me if you were at the void state. But, unfortunately for you, you are too weak. You cannot ignore my superior rank without consequences. Sui Ping pulled a long face. Indeed, the Beast King was not wrong as he had been progressing fast lately, but at the end of the day, he was still at the titled rank. He might have been able to protect himself from the weakest Fate State beasts, but that thousand-eyed demon beast was definitely not a weak one. It might be at the peak of the Fate State. Roar! The dark dragon hound showed its teeth at the Beast King. The young man darted the hound a glance. You have a star rank bloodline, and yet you allowed yourself to stay with this human creature. How pathetic! Go away, I will deal with you later. The Beast King was not in a rush to kill the dark dragon hound since it didn't have teleportation ability. Sui Ping, on the other hand, was the problem. He would be able to get away at a moment's notice, given the chance. Once he dealt with Sui Ping, it would be child's play to kill the dark dragon hound, which wasn't even able to teleport. The dark dragon hound certainly had many defensive skills. So what? At the end of the day, it would be beaten up. Since it lacked the ability to fight back, that was the only possible end for the dark dragon hound. Defenses would help you stay alive for the time being, but to get away and to win, you would have to turn to the offense. Defense alone would not do all the work. The dark dragon hound roared as if having understood the Beast King's words. The young man looked past the dark dragon hound to meet Sui Ping's gaze. The young man with crimson eyes simply said one word. Come. Whoosh. The next thing Sui Ping saw was the young man standing right in front of his face. Bang. Sui Ping quickly struck at the Beast King. He was inwardly appalled because he realized that the young man had not teleported. He was the one who had approached the enemy. Space transfer. The Beast King had moved him as well as the space he was in. That's a good sword, but you're not worthy to keep it. The young man grabbed Sui Ping's wrist, as he tried to wrest the weapon away. He had noticed that the sword was outstanding. The energy contained in the sword was only a little, but the blade was sharp. There was something unique about the sword. Something which had the star rank, a rank that he dreamed to reach. The sword was clearly crippled or defective, because there was no energy of nature's laws imbued in it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been the one at a disadvantage right then. Piss off! Sui Ping bellowed. He unleashed divine energy. A stream carrying an unbelievable force swarmed out of his arm and pushed away the Beast King's hand. At the same time, Sui Ping lifted his other arm to smash the Beast King's head. The young man reacted quickly. He tried to grab Sui Ping's fist, but the strength on Sui Ping's hand was more than he could imagine. Bang! Sui Ping landed a punch on his face. The young man was pushed back dozens of meters. There was a trace of blood by the corner of his mouth. The violence in his eyes grew. Insulting. He, a Fate State Beast King, had just been punched by a human creature. After that, he pulled that human closer to him. Go to hell! The crimson-eyed young man snarled. More and more crimson eyes opened up in the air, they emitted rays of red light that locked onto Sui Ping. The golden goblet kept on spinning over Sui Ping's chest, but the light from the crimson eyes was diminishing the artifact's strength. Bang! The young man opened the space and directly reached for Suoping. All of the young man's crimson eyes glared at Suoping as the latter raised his arm. Suoping came to a stop. The claws reached his head. But white bones crawled to protect his face and neck. The defensive layers were breaking one after the other. The dark dragon hound once again added defensive layers to Suoping. The young man struck again and again as if mad. Space trembled and anomalies occurred. There were terrifying repercussions with each strike. Suoping would be paralyzed in a sudden and bizarre manner every time he tried lifting his arm to fend off the strikes. His mind would also turn chaotic. Damn it! Suoping was losing patience. He was unable to do a thing while he was being struck. He would have died dozens of times if it weren't for the little skeleton and the dark dragon hound. Should I go on like this until death is inevitable? Suoping bit his teeth. He remembered his training in the cultivation sites and what Dusk had taught him. Sword. The sword in his heart. His heart was his sword and his sword was him. Suoping closed his eyes. He recalled the many battles he had fought in harsh environments. Since his mind had stopped working, he would let his body do the work. Die. The young man was getting even crazier. Right at that moment, Suoping's sword reached for his neck at a weird angle. That ray of sword light forced the young man to stop. Bang! A bump of flesh rose on his shoulder as he tried to stop the cut, but the bump was chopped off and the cut landed on his neck. But the sword was also stuck in his neck. The young man grabbed the blade at once, pulling it out. Blood gushed out from his neck. Soon after, the flesh wiggled and closed the cut. The young man glared at Suoping, who had his eyes closed at the moment. What is he? He was able to tell that Suoping was still under the influence of his skills, but he had indeed made a move. He moved without thinking and the angle of that strike had been vicious and fatal. Suoping opened his eyes. He looked at the Beast King and how the neck cut was healing. So, that wasn't good enough. Without thinking? True. He did not think. His body had learned to fight based on instinct after the countless battles he had gone through in the cultivation sites. The young man with crimson eyes said ferociously, "You've really gotten on my nerves." Suoping had deflected his strikes again and again. The young man was enraged by such humiliation. The black pigment moved to the crimson eyes. Black dots were seen inside the eyes. Suoping sensed a profound stream of Ashura energy inside the Beast King. Yes, Ashura. The noble kind of the undead creatures. Suoping was worried. He had failed to cut the Beast King's head off before and it would only become harder for him from that point on. "It's over," the young man with crimson eyes thus announced, his voice hoarse. The world fell into darkness. From that darkness came out a claw. Suoping quickly lifted his sword to defend himself but the claw had smashed Suoping into the ground. It was too fast. The claw had pushed him further into the ground before he was able to stand up. Crack! The white bones outside Suoping's body were breaking. The broken bones would continue to heal but the claw would push Suoping even harder. Before the healing could be completed, the cracks on the white bones were deepened. Suoping bit his teeth. He poured all of his energy into the little skeleton. The cracks on the white bones were healing faster. The bones were eventually able to withstand the strike. However, right then, the young man came down from above and stomped on Suoping's chest. The bones were breaking. Suoping was able to sense that the little skeleton would not hold for much longer. Is this the end? Suoping remembered that Sol Lingyu and Li Yuanfeng were still in the scroll. The Inferno Dragon and the Purple Python were still in the contract space and the Dark Dragon Hound was still there with him. He could not allow himself to die. But he was much too weak in comparison. "I will trust them to you." Suoping made a decision. He didn't have the luxury of thinking at his leisure. All hope was lost. Since death was inevitable, he had to at least save some of them. He tried to summon the Dark Dragon Hound back to the contract space. The contract space would open up in a random place around him after he died. that place around him could mean a large area. There was a good chance that his battle pets could end up above ground and they would have a chance to live. As for the little skeleton, it had to take the scroll away for him. The thousand-eyed demon beast was powerful, but it would find it quite hard to kill the little skeleton. The white bones were still trying to protect him. Still, with greater and greater stress, the cracks began to widen. There were so many cracks on the white bones that it was offending to the eyes. But still, like a miracle, the bones didn't break into pieces. What made the skeleton last that long? Suo Ping felt a feeble message in his consciousness. It was a message of love and affection. The magnificent Skeleton King's image appeared behind Suo Ping. The Skeleton King sat on his throne and looked at the world of white bones from a height. Roar! The Skeleton King stood up and shouted. That shout dispersed the darkness. The darkness went away as if a curtain had been lifted. The darkness was gone and the dark dragon hound was able to see Suo Ping again. It hurried to him at once. Suo Ping was thrown toward the dark dragon hound and he fell on its back. The fur was as sharp as a sword, but then it immediately turned soft to brace Suo Ping's fall. Suo Ping was covered in blood and his skin was covered in cuts. However, there were no more white bones protecting him. The white bones were still under the Beast King's claws. Suo Ping looked at the dark dragon hound. He felt feeble and the force outside him disappeared. He turned around and saw that pile of white bones under the young man's feet. White bones were scattered on the ground. He had been thrown away. Of course, the little skeleton did it. Bang! Without him as the body, the white bones were stomped into pieces. Suo Ping felt he could barely breathe. The dark dragon hound snarled in pain as well. It would fool around with the little skeleton often and they shared a deep bond. With Suo Ping, the little skeleton, that tall and big dude, what the dark dragon hound would call the Inferno Dragon, and the purple python. They would explore and fight in the cultivation sites. They would trust each other with their lives. Together they had endured Suo Ping's tortures and they had trained together. They had seen too many terrifying beasts. They were friends. The young man gazed at Suo Ping. Right then, the white bones gathered once more and formed the little skeleton again. Then, the little skeleton dashed forward and slashed at the Beast King with its bone blade. The young man reacted quickly. He grabbed the blade with his claws and kicked the little skeleton away to smash against the wall. The little skeleton fell to pieces. But the bone pieces quickly reformed the little skeleton and it made another try. In the meantime, Suo Ping heard something in his mind. Go! The little skeleton was telling Suo Ping to leave. Suo Ping would rarely cry but tears filled his eyes. Back at the Longjiang base city, the Inferno Dragon had stood up to become his last shield during that beast strike. The little skeleton was doing the same thing. That might be a frequent occurrence for the other battle pet warriors. Battle pets would sacrifice their lives to buy some time for their masters to get away. Pets were supposed to be disposed of like that, right? But Suo Ping remembered how the little skeleton would always look at him with its googly eyes and would always behave. How could he have the heart to use the little skeleton as a tool so that he could escape? That was a skeleton, but on top of that, the little skeleton was Suo Ping's dear friend. The most important friend. Go and help out! Suo Ping shouted but his voice was hoarse. He had merged with the little skeleton when he was fighting the young man and tried teleporting many times, gradually using up his strength. He could barely move a finger at the moment. But the dark dragon hound was still there with him. He knew that his order was unreasonable. But he could not bear the thought of leaving the little skeleton alone to run away. The dark dragon hound looked at the little skeleton but didn't move. That was the first time it had disobeyed Suo Ping's orders. The dark dragon hound heard a warning in its mind. It was a warning of fatal danger. But the dark dragon hound picked up Suo Ping in its mouth and ran. The contract started to burn and corrode the hound the moment it began to run. Suo Ping was stunned. What do you think you're doing? Suo Ping shouted at the dark dragon hound. He knew the dark dragon hound was afraid of death, very much so. 90% of the skills it had learned were of the defensive kind. But why would the dark dragon hound disobey him at the risk of its life? Stop! Stop now! You'll be burned to death! Suo Ping shouted. The dark dragon hound looked straight ahead, determined and resolute. It did not stop. The burning was painful, but the pet ignored it. It ran and ran forward. Suo Ping looked back. The little skeleton was stalling the thousand-eyed demon beast. He was barely able to see them. I know you're trying to save me. But, do I or this? Suo Ping took back his order, but the flames didn't disappear right away. A moment later, the flame-covered dark dragon hound left Suo Ping next to a wall, then used its claw to dig out the scroll and turned around. Suo Ping was surprised. Where are you going? He asked. He already had an idea. The dark dragon hound turned around and gazed at Suo Ping. The violence in its eyes had been replaced by affection and peace. They looked at each other in that dim-lit pathway. Suo Ping immediately understood his pet's intention. It carried him there because it didn't want him to die. It was going back because the little skeleton was its friend. The dark dragon hound turned around. Violence again filled its eyes. It dashed away with determination. Suo Ping finally came back to his senses. He knew that the dark dragon hound was ready to help the little skeleton with its life. But death was inevitable. Why would the dark dragon hound withstand the pain from the flames and save him? Why would it go back when it was safe already? Ah! Suo Ping shouted. Finally, he recovered some strength. He used that strength to open up his contract's space. Whoosh! The dark dragon hound was pulled back into the contract's space. The contract between Suo Ping and the dark dragon hound was the Archean contract that could enable him to call back his battle pets as long as his battle pets were within a certain range. Plus, the space was stable and the battle pet was not currently under attack. Suo Ping couldn't just stand idle as the dark dragon hound headed to its doom. The dark dragon hound struggled but eventually went back to the contract's space. Suo Ping had exhausted all of his energy. Utterly frustrated, he felt he was a complete loser. Wait for me, Suo Ping said to the little skeleton in his consciousness. The thousand-eyed demon beast would be unable to kill the little skeleton for the time being. If he stayed there, he would do nothing other than drag the both of them to their deaths. The little skeleton had given him a chance. Suo Ping knew that he would only slow the little skeleton down. Swish! Suo Ping opened the scroll. Two people came out in a hurry. Both Li Yuanfeng and Sol Lingyu were startled to see Suo Ping covered in blood. Ping! Sol Lingyu shouted. Li Yuanfeng turned pale from fright. Brother Su! Suo Ping mustered the energy to tell them, take me away. My battle pet is stalling that thing. We need to get out of here. He knew that the faster they left, the less stress the little skeleton would have to face. The thousand-eyed demon beast would probably be unable to kill the little skeleton. But, it could end up dying for real if it had to stall the thousand-eyed demon beast for a very long time so that they would get away. Li Yuanfeng could not believe that Suo Ping's battle pet was able to stop that thing. But then again, that was not the time to find the answer. He helped Suo Ping stand up, poured some astral powers into him and said to Sol Lingyu, let's get out of here. Sol Lingyu held Suo Ping's other hand and she, too, poured astral powers into him so that he could heal. She knew that saying one more word would mean wasting another second for nothing. Regret would not help her at the moment. She had been the cause of it all. Whoosh! Li Yuanfeng told Sol Lingyu to support Suo Ping with her hand while he explored the way. Sol Lingyu and Suo Ping followed Li Yuanfeng. Suo Ping remained silent. He tried to mobilize the chaotic star chart to gather more astral powers. Getting more astral powers could give him hope of getting out of there. He kept a brave face while sorrow ate him inside. That was what it meant to be a warrior. The chaotic star chart enabled him to absorb astral powers quite quickly. The vortices in his cells were spinning quickly. Several minutes later, So Ping felt he had recovered some astral powers. He was later able to move by himself thanks to So Lingyu's continuous influx of astral powers. Roar! A beast king rushed at them. Li Yuanfeng made a swift move, killing it immediately. So Ping was the one who had fought the thousand-eyed demon beast. He could not trouble him with an average beast king anymore. The three of them hurried to escape. Li Yuanfeng had taken charge of eliminating the beast kings along the way. After about 10 minutes, when they went through another fork in the road, they saw a swirl up ahead. Look! An exit! Li Yuanfeng was happy to have found an exit that quickly. It would not take them to the field of ice, but it would lead them to safety. The thousand-eyed demon beast was at the fate state, but there would be complicated formations outside the swirl which would diminish the strength of those beast kings. That was why the thousand-eyed demon beast had not left that place to roam about. Having found an exit so soon came as a surprise to So Ping. Let's go, Li Yuanfeng said. So Lingyu helped So Ping get into the swirl. So Ping took a moment before he stepped in. He felt that the little skeleton was still alive. He knew how sturdy the little skeleton's life was. When something killed the little skeleton and the world of the undead was about to take it back, the little skeleton could draw energy from the world of the undead and come back to life. That ability alone made the little skeleton become almost immortal. Of course, this could be prevented if there was a special method that could stop the little skeleton from absorbing undead energy from its home world. Find a chance to escape. I will find you. So Ping conveyed his intention to the little skeleton. He wasn't sure if the little skeleton would receive that message accurately since he was far away, but the contract would allow for them to know each other's locations. Once he left the deep caves, the little skeleton would know and it would also leave. The little skeleton would then be able to run for its life. Let's go. So Ping repeated his message to the little skeleton several times. Let me go first, Li Yuanfeng said. He was worried that there could be beasts outside. So Ping was in no shape to stop beast kings. After 2 seconds passed, So Ping went into the swirl as well. So Lingyu was right behind him. The world spun. So Ping saw blue skies and green grass when he opened his eyes. They were in a plain. Beasts were crouching on the grassland. So Ping saw the sun in the sky. Is this, outside? This is the surface. There was sunlight but no sun in the ice field. The light came from the formation on the ceiling. A clear sky had been artificially created, but the source of light was invisible. They made it to the surface from that exit. Roar! The beasts crouching there noticed the sudden appearance of human beings. One of the beasts stood up. It looked like a mix between a wolf and a lion. The sharp blades on its back perked up as it locked its gaze on the newcomers. The beast's roar alarmed the nearby beasts. The beasts stood up one after the other. It was actually quite an impressive sight. 7. Beast Kings. So Ping was relieved. Most of the beasts gathered on the plain were at the titled rank. There were only 7 beast kings amongst them. There could be other beast kings in hiding, so he wasn't able to notice them. Those beast kings were mostly at the ocean state. Only the beast king that looked like a wolf seemed to be at the void state. Let's get out of here. Li Yuanfeng wore a grave face as he looked around. He grabbed So Ping and So Lingyu from their shoulders and the space began to contort around them. Roar! That wolf-looking beast bellowed at the 3 when they were about to get away. Space began to squeeze the 3. Li Yuanfeng snorted. The air trembled and the wolf-like beast's strike was dispelled. Li Yuanfeng vanished on the spot with So Ping and So Lingyu in tow. They re-emerged thousands of meters away. They teleported a second time. Whoosh! 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 They left the plane in an instant. Li Yuanfeng took a moment to catch his breath once they had arrived at a safe place. The Beast Kings didn't go after them, much to his delight. Carrying 2 people while teleporting was an arduous task. He could have slaughtered all the beasts on the plane if it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to alert other beasts. That Void State Beast King was not a problem for him. He had been stationed in the deep caves for 800 years and the battles had made him one of the best battle pet warriors at the Void State. I think these are the Sea Rock Mountains. Li Yuanfeng came to a sudden stop when he noticed the surroundings. Sui Ping looked at him with a question, Sea Rock Mountains. Li Yuanfeng came back to his senses. He excitedly said to Sui Ping, yes, the Sea Rock Mountains. We are outside. We really are outside. He still wasn't sure that they had returned to the surface by only looking at the sun, especially because it seemed too surreal. But he would have never forgotten the Sea Rock Mountains. They were outside. It looks different. I see more woods here but the mountains are still the same. This is the place where I grew up, these are the Sea Rock Mountains. This is home. The Dark Claw base city is quite near. Li Yuanfeng was trembling as he reached the end of the sentence. 800 years. He could not believe that he would be able to go home after fighting in the deep caves for 800 years. He could have retired and gone home a long time before, but he didn't want to leave behind his partners in battles in the deep caves. He would also have to help train the newcomers, but when the newcomers became familiar with the deep caves and it was time for him to leave, the newcomers would have already become his partners in battle and he became reluctant to leave without them. He didn't want to leave his friends to face death by themselves. As such, for all sorts of reasons, he had never left the deep caves. But this day, the swirl took him directly outside, to a place near his home. Finally, he would be able to go home after 800 years. Sui Ping was then certain they were indeed outside, he felt he could finally breathe again. But the thought that the little skeleton was still in the corridor pained his heart. After taking a deep breath, Sui Ping said, Brother Li, go and alert the tower about the deep caves. I have to go back. I need to find a way to go inside the deep caves again to save my battle pet. The thought that Sui Ping's battle pet was still taking the great risk to stall the thousand-eyed demon beast brought Li Yuanfeng back from his sudden excitement. He nodded. I will tell the tower about the deep caves. But, Brother Su, I'll be going with you if you're planning on going back to the deep caves. I want to. Sui Ping argued, you've been there for 800 years. It's time for you to take some rest. Yes, but it's only been 800 years. I can stay there a little longer. Li Yuanfeng chuckled. His answer sounded casual and carefree. Sui Ping nodded. Li Yuanfeng asked, Brother Su, where is the base city you're from? I'll go and visit you after I see my family. Sui Ping answered. I'm from the Longjiang base city. Ask around and you will find me. The Longjiang base city? I've heard about that name. I think we're going in the same direction then. Brother Su, how about you come with me to visit my family first? If I'm not mistaken, we're going to reach the Dark Claw base city first, after that is the 7th entrance to the deep caves and then there's the Longjiang base city, Li Yuanfeng proposed. Sui Ping didn't know that Li Yuanfeng still remembered the locations of the base cities that well. Such being the case, Sui Ping didn't have a reason to decline. Sure, Sui Ping agreed. The Valiant Academy was just after the Dark Claw base city as well. He could make a stop there to settle the scores. The thought of Sol Lingyu ever going missing filled Sui Ping with rage. Li Yuanfeng led the way. The three of them checked the surroundings as they flew away. They didn't teleport this time, the beasts didn't go after them, which was a great relief. I think the Beast Kings are smart enough not to go after us. Li Yuanfeng laughed. Sui Ping nodded. But I thought you said that the swirl in the corridor should have been connected to a field. How come we reached the surface? Why were so many beasts gathered there? Li Yuanfeng's smile disappeared. That is what worries me, it doesn't make sense. You said you didn't see legendary battle pet warriors on your way inside and now this happened. I think that those beasts we saw on that plain were from the deep caves. Sui Ping raised his eyebrows but said nothing. He believed that that was not just what Li Yuanfeng thought. Those beasts were indeed from the deep caves. They had that smell. They are out here but they didn't go anywhere, they're just waiting. I think those things are plotting something. This may be a catastrophe waiting to happen. Li Yuanfeng said. Worry hid between his eyebrows. That was why he said he wanted to go back to the deep caves after visiting his family. He could not set his mind at ease. Everything was strange. The beasts outside had to be the vanguard force that had been sent up from the deep caves to pave the way. He had to report this to the tower and have them send legendary battle pet warriors to slaughter the beasts and then check out the deep caves. Your sister has in a sense made a great contribution. Li Yuanfeng said all of a sudden. Solingyu, who had kept her head low all this time, looked up. She had been blaming herself after her initial state of joy, ever since they came out from the deep caves. She knew how strong the bond between Suiping and his battle pet was. His battle pet had stayed in the deep caves so he could save her. He had traded his battle pet's life with hers. Fortunately, Suiping's battle pet was powerful enough. Otherwise, none of them would have gotten out. Sir, don't make fun of me. I almost got you killed, Solingyu lowered her voice. I'm a bad luck charm, Li Yuanfeng smiled. That's not right. Your brother wouldn't have entered the deep caves to find you if you hadn't gone there, and we wouldn't have noticed the absence of legendary battle pet warriors, nor the group of beasts we just saw. We're now aware that those beasts may be plotting something. I don't know what they want to do, but it definitely isn't something good for us. It cannot be good for humankind. But we noticed that. We'll be able to save the world if we can take action in time. Solingyu opened her mouth but uttered no words. She forced a smile. That sounded right, but she had not done anything to help. She had only created trouble. The fact that they had been able to notice those weird things was a complete surprise. She had nothing to do with that. Suiping darted a glance at her. You know you did something wrong, so be smart in the future. Don't get me in trouble again. Solingyu pursed her lips. She knew he had every right to blame her. What happened that time had taught her a hard lesson and she would never forget it. She had already taken her 7-day stay hiding in the deep caves by herself as an unforgettable lesson. But at that time, she didn't know she would have a chance to correct her wrong. She didn't know that Suiping would go and save her. I understand, she said. She would have argued with him in the old days, but arguing with him didn't even pass her mind at the moment. I'm glad to hear that. Suiping rubbed her hair. Li Yuanfeng chuckled. He saw the outline of a magnificent wall on the horizon. We've arrived. That's the Dark Claw Base City. Suiping gazed into the distance and saw a huge city leaping into his sight. It was a majestic city. Moss covered the city wall. It seemed that it had been some time since the city had experienced a battle. I'm finally back. Li Yuanfeng gazed at the city. The walls, the bricks, and the stones looked awfully familiar. That memory was a part of him. One look and he was moved. For countless times, he had dreamed of that base city. He had dreamed of the people in the base city. That day, he was finally back. Whoosh! All of a sudden, they heard someone approaching. The chatting warriors became alert. They looked over and saw 3 people flying to the city wall at a fast speed. The 3 flew straight into the city above their heads without intending to stop. 3 titled battle pet warriors. Are they from some important family? The warriors wondered. It was rare to see 3 titled battle pet warriors traveling together. Phew! While taking the lead, Li Yuanfeng was flying to a certain location in the base city. The buildings seemed to be arranged in a disorderly manner when seen from ground level, but they seemed like neatly arranged matchboxes when seen from the sky, which was a welcoming sight for certain people with OCD. I cannot believe that those barren lands were turned into residential areas. Li Yuanfeng looked at the buildings in a daze. The mountains and deserted lands he once knew were not there. The city was lively with its large population, but that was not the base city he had been familiar with. I think it's over there. Li Yuanfeng turned in a certain direction. He still remembered where his family was located. They soon arrived, but standing in front of him was not the mansion he knew, it was an office building with more than 100 floors. The words on the building said Hans Group. Li Yuanfeng was confused. He stood in front of the office building. Battle pet warriors were coming and going with small and low-rank battle pets on their shoulders or by their sides. Su Ping, Su Lingyu, and Li Yuanfeng's appearance caught many people's attention. 3 battle pet warriors flying together certainly deserved attention. Look, titled Battle Pet Warriors. I heard that we're going to have some leaders parachuted here. Are they our new leaders? I think so. Apart from titled Battle Pet Warriors, who else are qualified to come here and lead us? Many people discussed in low voices as they looked at the 3 with respect. Titled Battle Pet Warriors were treated nicely wherever they went. Li Yuanfeng looked at that building, he frowned but said nothing. He went inside, Su Lingyu and Su Ping had no other choice but to follow him. Li Yuanfeng saw a middle-aged man sitting behind a counter. The middle-aged man was an advanced battle pet warrior, so Li Yuanfeng decided to ask him, "Sorry, but can you tell me where is the Li family that was here before?" "What? What Li family?" The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows. "There is no Li family. This is the Han family's place and it has been since a long time ago." "A long time ago?" Li Yuanfeng asked, "How long?" "You don't know." The middle-aged man sized him up and down. He could not believe that there was someone who didn't know about the Han family in the Dark Claw base city. Anyone with some basic knowledge would know that the Han family had been there for 300 years and the office building had been built 200 years prior. "How long?" Li Yuanfeng repeated his question. The middle-aged said grumpily, "Can you not look it up? Ask anyone and they will be able to tell you. Anyway, are you even from here?" Li Yuanfeng pulled a long face. "I am asking you. How long?" Even his mere breath had shattered the counter. That place had once been the Li family's foundation, they wouldn't have given it up to anyone else. The family could have been relocated but he trusted that his family would have at least built an ancestral hall there. That should not be a place where other families would get a chance to stick their flags in. "Hey!" The middle-aged man was startled by the sudden breaking of the counter. He didn't even see how it had happened. It was akin to the external release of astral powers that he knew some titled battle pet warriors were able to do. Some special skills could generate that effect as well, but they were rarely seen. "Titled?" That middle-aged man sized up Li Yuanfeng again with more interest. It was unlikely for a titled battle pet warrior to have no knowledge about the Han family. Of course, unless the man was from another base city. "Sir, are you a titled battle pet warrior? Can you tell me your title? This is the Han family's building. Even a titled battle pet warrior would have to follow our rules or shoulder the consequences," the middle-aged man thus claimed. Even though the middle-aged man was just an advanced battle pet warrior, he had seen a fair amount of titled battle pet warriors. He didn't have to be afraid of other titled battle pet warriors because he was being backed by the Han family. "My title?" Li Yuanfeng was so angry that he laughed. An advanced battle pet warrior was demanding to know his title. "Get me someone in charge here." Li Yuanfeng was not in the mood to waste time with the man. "I am the one in charge." The middle-aged man was unable to finish his sentence because he bumped into the wall behind him. The wallpaper was torn, revealing the metal inside. Even the metal structure was curved. That was a threatening deed because the building had been built with a special alloy by some pets of the stone family with unique skills. "Now you're not. Get me the person who is really in charge." Li Yuanfeng didn't even bother to look at the man who was coughing out blood at the moment. He turned to see a girl who was pale with fright. That girl was able to recognize the external release of energy as well because it was too well known. You. She wanted to say that you are too bold to hurt him, but the miserable state of the middle-aged man made her realize that she had to do the smart thing. So, her words changed to "You can wait for a moment, right?" The girl made the call and stepped to the side, looking at Li Yuanfeng nervously. She feared that he would hurt other people, and she would be the first to suffer if that came to pass. You are doomed. The middle-aged crawled up from the ground. He pointed at Li Yuanfeng with a vicious face. No one can bully the Han family like that. Shut up. It was Sui Ping who shouted this time. He didn't do anything, but the middle-aged man's head began to spin. An invisible hand had slapped him. The slap was so forceful that his neck was twisted and he spun around for a while before he collapsed on the ground. The man was not breathing. Li Yuanfeng was surprised. He didn't expect that Sui Ping would be that cruel. He was just trying to teach that man a lesson by hurting him, but Sui Ping had killed him. The other people behind the counter freaked out. Some battle pet warriors passing by were attracted. They stopped to get a better look at the incident. They were eager for such dramatic displays to spice up their boring lives. What is going on? A gray-haired old man stepped into the building with a girl that looked like his secretary walking next to him. He took a glance at the crowd and noticed the strangers, then, he saw the middle-aged man lying over a pool of blood. Senior Feng. Senior Feng is at the peak of the titled rank. This will be fun to watch. The onlookers removed their glee-filled grins and lowered their heads to show their respects. Senior Feng was a cornerstone for the Han family, a well-known character in the titled battle pet warrior community. Who are you? How dare you break into the Han's group? The young and pretty girl took a step forward with a long face. Whoever committed murder there would have to pay the price. The man who had died was not just an advanced battle pet warrior, he was the face of the Han family. That girl was an 8th rank battle pet warrior. Miss Yuqian. She graduated from the Valiant Academy, being ranked among the top 3 of her class from what I heard. She can even defeat the average titled battle pet warriors, not to mention other master battle pet warriors. Talents don't have to be reasonable, right? Those who could be considered trouble for us are nothing for her. The onlookers expressed their admiration for the aloof girl. Titled battle pet warrior. Li Yuanfeng turned over to the gray-haired old man and directly ignored the girl who was expressing her anger at the moment. So, the old guy is at the peak of the titled rank. He should be a person in charge. Whoosh! Li Yuanfeng lifted his hand. The old man with grey hair suddenly appeared right in front of him. That sudden movement dazzled the onlookers. They could not help but exclaim when they were able to see again. That was fast. That's what Senior Feng is capable of. But Senior Feng was baffled. What is going on? He was just standing there. What was he doing so close to that person? Also, he felt something unspeakable was trapping him. He could not move and he could not mobilize his astral powers. All the astral powers were kept inside. It was complete domination. Senior Feng was losing a little color on his face. Do you know about the Li family that used to be here? Li Yuanfeng clasped his hands behind his back and glared at the old man coldly. Li Yuanfeng looked like a young man, but he was actually old enough to be that man's great-grandfather. The old man was just a kid to him, both in age and in strength. The Li family. Senior Feng thought of something. Do you mean the Li family that once had a legendary battle pet warrior? If there were no other legendary battle pet warrior surnamed Li, that would be the one. Where did they go? Senior Feng tried to secretly break free from the containment as they talked, but to his surprise, he could not. He had never met anyone able to do that to him. Is this some secret skill? Or? Even thinking that word made his heart skip a beat. Legendary battle pet warrior? Is this young man a legendary battle pet warrior? Senior Feng was scared by his own guess. Who are you? That's not something you should know. Just answer my question, Li Yuanfeng said. His patience was wearing thin. He began to feel that something must have happened to the Li family. They wouldn't have given up their ancestral ground here. That was why he had hurt that middle-aged man. He was irritated. Senior Feng turned even paler. The Li family you mentioned was already gone 500 years ago. I just only heard them from someone else. There were some legendary battle pet warriors in the base city, and one of them was a member of the Li family. Unfortunately, that legendary battle pet warrior died a long time ago. Misfortune befell the family and they disappeared. 500 years ago. Li Yuanfeng could not believe that. What do you mean died? What is the name of that legendary battle pet warrior you mentioned? Li Yuanfeng shouted his question. Senior Feng felt the stress over him become greater, and that his bones were about to break. He wanted to unleash his astral powers but he could not, he was confined. His own astral powers were afraid of something and they just wouldn't leave his body. He stared at Li Yuanfeng. He pushed down that ominous thought flashing past his mind. That legendary battle pet warrior was named Li Yuanfeng and he was known as the Sun Chaser. Li Yuanfeng was stunned still. So were Soling and Suiping. Suiping thought faster. He guessed the overall situation, which made him angry. Li Yuanfeng came back to his senses. He had fought in the deep caves for 800 years. He didn't do that because he was foolish. He did that because he wanted to. He wasn't any less sophisticated than the other legendary battle pet warriors, he didn't have to think hard to understand what had happened back then. I stayed in the deep caves for 800 years. I was away for 800 years and now you say that I died. Li Yuanfeng wore a mocking grin but the coldness in his eyes was scary. Do you really think that those who stay in the deep caves are stupid? I was willing to go to the deep caves and the tower promised to protect the Li family forever. Not even that promise was kept. He clenched his fist and the look in his eyes grew sharper. The Li family disappeared 500 years in the past, he had already been staying in the deep caves for 300 years by then. He had even stayed for another 500 years after the Li family disappeared. He was protecting humankind and he was protecting the Li family. But there was no longer a Li family for him to protect. After retiring, maybe he couldn't have made that great a contribution to humankind, but at the very least he could protect the Li family for generations to come. He and his partners were willing to guard the deep caves. Why the hell could the tower not safeguard their families? Li Yuanfeng was furious. He was beyond furious. Senior Feng was dumbstruck by Li Yuanfeng's words. The deep caves? 800 years? Senior Feng narrowed his eyes. Only legendary battle pet warriors could guard the deep caves. Is this young man that legendary battle pet warrior of the Li family? Sir, you are? Senior Feng asked. He was speaking with respect. He felt that it wouldn't be a hard thing for the young man to kill him. If the young man wasn't using some secret skill, then he had to be at the legendary rank. I am Li Yuanfeng, the legendary battle pet warrior of the Li family whom you said was long gone. Li Yuanfeng cast a cold glance at Senior Feng and the onlookers. Impossible. The Li family had been wiped out 500 years ago and that legendary battle pet warrior should have died in the deep caves. Did he come back from the dead? Senior Feng wondered. But Li Yuanfeng certainly was from the subcontinent district, judging by his appearance and because he knew almost all the titled battle pet warriors at the peak of the subcontinent district, Li Yuanfeng was not one of them. Li Yuanfeng couldn't have been a common, ordinary titled warrior. A titled battle pet warrior able to overwhelm other battle pet warriors would have already earned a name a long time before. Senior Feng was not the only one shocked. The onlookers were dumbstruck. They had overheard the conversation. They had at first thought that Senior Feng was going to do something to that young-looking man by suddenly approaching him, but the two ended up striking a conversation. Did they have to stand so close to each other to talk? Their faces are basically rubbing against each other. The conversation and Senior Feng's attitude were even more confusing. Senior Feng spoke with respect. That person claimed he was a legendary battle pet warrior. Legend. That was a word that could astonish anyone. They could tell from Senior Feng's attitude that the young-looking man's claim was most likely true. But Why did a legendary battle pet warrior come to see the Hans group? All of a sudden, one of the onlookers said something, "Sir? Forefather." He could barely be heard at first, but he soon grew more excited. A middle-aged man dashed out from the crowd and ran to meet Li Yuanfeng. He looked at him, then dropped to his knees and spoke with a trembling voice, "Sir, it is my great honor to meet you. I am one of your unworthy descendants." Li Yuanfeng was transfixed. Senior Feng was, too. But he soon pulled a long face and shouted at the middle-aged man, "Go away. This is not a place for you to talk." Then, he turned to Li Yuanfeng and explained, "Mr. Li, sir, he is a member of our Han family. He must have lost his sense somehow. I think he's just trying to chat you up now that he found out that you're a legendary battle pet warrior." Senior Feng said to the girl called Yuqian, "Qian, get rid of this man. Be sure to discipline him." That girl named Yuqian was just as stunned as anyone else by that odd series of events. Like the rest of the onlookers, she had thought that Senior Feng was the one who had moved to intimidate that young-looking man to teach him a lesson. But the fact was the other way around. It was even more surprising to find that Senior Feng had verified the young-looking man's identity. So, that person is indeed at the legendary rank. I understand. Yuqian darted a glance at Li Yuanfeng before she went up to capture that middle-aged man. The latter shouted at once, "Sir, I am not a member of the Han family. I work here but I have the Li family's blood in me." "Shut up." Yuqian stopped the man, "Sober up. Han Jinsong, if you're not part of the Han family, then who are you? Betraying your surname just so that you can butter up a legendary battle pet warrior? From today on, you do not deserve to stay with us. You will be eliminated from our family." Yuqian enjoyed a high status among the Hans and her verdict was final. She raised her hand. However, she suddenly trembled before she was smashed away, the repelling force making her fly for a dozen meters. Her fall was not a pretty one, blood was oozing out from the corner of her mouth. That was unexpected. Yuqian got up, confused. She didn't even see how she had been struck. "I can feel the Li family's blood in you," Li Yuanfeng said to the kneeling middle-aged man. The man heaved a sigh of relief. "Sir, thank you." Senior Feng, on the other hand, did not like that result. "Sir, do not trust him. He's a member of our Han family. Maybe someone in the branch of his family found some descendants of the Li family to marry, and that is how he has blood of the Lis." "No," the middle-aged man protested. He would have never mustered the courage to refute Senior Feng, the titled battle pet warrior who had the ultimate power of determining life and death. But he didn't care about it that day. "Sir, I am from the Li family. I was forced to change my surname to Han. When we heard that you had died, other families soon came to strike us and the tower no longer protected us. The other families began to covet our legacies since we didn't have the tower's protection. All of them thought that since we once had a legendary battle pet warrior in the family, we would certainly have some treasures left. The families fought us and they suffered some losses as well. The Hans took advantage of that and annexed the Li family. We were forced to abandon the Li surname and become part of them. We are too ashamed to meet you, sir. We deserve to be disciplined. We do have the Li family's blood in us. We were forced to keep on with our lives with the Han family, but never have we given up on the idea of bringing back the Li family because we have a legendary battle pet warrior in our family." The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with unshed tears. Li Yuanfeng clenched his fists when he heard that the tower had forsaken the Li family and that the surviving members had been forced to take on the Han surname. He did not die. He might have been in great danger, giving the impression that he was going to die, but he didn't. He couldn't even remember how many fatal dangers he had gone through during the 800 years in the deep caves. Maybe there was a time when news implied that and the tower thought he was dead. It was possible that the tower had stopped protecting his family because of it. But when he went into the deep caves, the tower had promised everlasting protection. The tower should have protected his family, even if he died in the deep caves. After all, they braved the deep caves to fight the beasts, and the chances of death were great. If their families would have to suffer when they died, which legendary battle pet warrior would willingly go and safeguard the deep caves? The Li family didn't vanish. It was still there, but the members had to give up the Li surname, which was something he could not accept. Tell me. What happened? Li Yuanfeng clenched his fists. Although furious, he was able to keep his voice calm. The middle-aged man nodded and told Li Yuanfeng everything he knew. Back in those days, the Li family began to gradually decline when news came out that Li Yuanfeng had died. The first dozens of years were fine because Li Yuanfeng's influence was still there. But many different families began to covet the Li family's possessions later on. The Li family experienced a series of battles, spanning for several decades. They had to deal with assassinations, spies, schemes and all sorts of strikes. The Lis were eventually unable to hold on. That was the darkest moment for the Li family. The Hans came and the Li family lost all dignity. Fortunately, they had some members who were quite talented. There was a girl who was a genius trainer and she had sacrificed herself to develop a relationship with the then young master of the Han family. She provided benefits to the Han family with her training skills. She eventually bought a chance for the Li family members to carry on as part of the Han family. That young master was the most talented of all and he had great powers. However, he then died shortly after he became the family head, right when he was contending against other families over a mysterious realm. But the rules he had set up were still upheld. Still, the other members of the Han family were still unable to accept the newcomers and eventually forced them to change their surnames. The Li family members had a different surname, and they had been brainwashed by the Han family, but they still remembered. No one could erase the fact that the Li family had once had a legendary battle pet warrior. They were proud to share that bloodline. The Han family indoctrinated them about the greatness of the Han family and their many great battle pet warriors, but none of that could compare to a legendary battle pet warrior. Of course, some descendants of the Li family were fully assimilated to the Han family. They became true members. As time passed and they reached the present day, there were merely a dozen that still remembered they were from the Li family. There would be less and maybe none in the future. For all this time, there were some Han family members that still had a hard time accepting the former members of the Li family. That was why people like Han Jinsong, the middle-aged man, couldn't have been promoted to a high position in the Han family. They were always tested, punished and they had to put up with all of that. They had to, no matter how painful it was. If they fought, they would be eliminated forever. That flame was the reason why they had been able to be there. They had the firm belief that since the Lis had once had a legendary battle pet warrior, they could have another one. That was their conviction. Han Jinsong wouldn't have stepped up if it weren't for the fact that Li Yuanfeng looked like the legendary battle pet warrior from his family. He was afraid that it could be another test. If he stepped into the Han family's trap, all the sacrifices and efforts would have been in vain. The Han family would have detected all those who still clung to the Li family's bloodline, and he would become the sinner who inadvertently had singled them out. And yet, he could not allow himself to stay silent if Li Yuanfeng was present. They had also heard the news from the tower that Li Yuanfeng had died. Han Jinsong didn't think that the Han family would use that to set up a trap. That was one of the reasons why Han Jinsong had decided to step up and speak.